Conception after loss. This video is going to explore some of the ways in which miscarriages and abortions come up along the fertility journey, along the journey of conceiving a child. And I'd like to just invite in everybody to consider, what is your language around these things? I think it can be really powerful to change the language that we use around certain things, particularly when it relates to our health, our well-being, our bodies, and on a deeper level, our experience of certain events in our lives. And it's not to negate at all what's happening, and it's not to veer away from the energetics around some of these things. But for example, when we're talking about what's commonly called as a miscarriage, I personally believe that the word miscarriage insinuates that there's something wrong with your body, or you had an inability to carry through this pregnancy or this baby. And so much of the language around women's health, women's bodies, fertility, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, automatically suggests that somehow our bodies are inherently problematic, and somehow our bodies must have been incapable, or must be, or might turn out to be somehow just default to not functioning the way that they're designed to. So I want to invite in that as I'm talking, my language may not resonate with you, and so I just invite you to feel into these things using the language that feels true for you, that feels right for you in your body. And this is a really good suggestion for all women who might be in a prenatal journey, or if you are a woman that's supporting someone through their pregnancy. Ask yourself, what kind of language do I want to use around my pregnancy, around my labor and my birth? Or considerately ask women that you may be supporting, what kind of language would you like me to use around this? A lot of the language that's used around these things is, I think, very minimalizing and very negatively representing what's actually happening. And the words that we use vibrate, they carry a vibration inside of our bodies. So transforming the language can transform actually our experience and begin to transform some of our deep, deep conditioning and programming around some of these things. So when it comes to infertility or blockages around conceiving, once I start to work with women, often, not always, but often, what we discover is that there's been a loss. And that could have been a loss in that the pregnancy did not continue on, and the loss happened at a few days gestation, or a few weeks, or even a few months gestation. Could have been a loss of a baby that got born and was carried all the way through. It tends to be that losses that happen later in the pregnancy or after the birth are more considered as loss. And I would like to really acknowledge and recognize that loss is loss. And our bodies, our physiology, all month, every month, are preparing to create a child. Whether or not we want to make a baby, or we're choosing to make a baby or not, our bodies are preparing for that process each and every month. And when loss actually happens, This is a deep felt experience that's unique to each and every woman. And that experience is inevitably bringing up for her many other memories that she may or may not be conscious to of loss that could have happened earlier in her life, going all the way back to her very own conception. I have to plug in my laptop 1 second. So, no matter how loss occurs, when loss occurs, all of this energy and all of this information is stored inside of our womb space. And this could open doors to a lot, because even if we didn't experience loss in this lifetime, even if we've never lost a child at any stage of their growth and in-utero development or after birth, even if we haven't terminated a pregnancy, our mamas did, and their mamas did, and their mamas did. And so all of that, even transgenerational information, is held in our wombs. I think, to keep things really efficient and grounded and practical for the healing that we're doing in this lifetime, it's best to just focus on our bodies and what we've experienced in this lifetime. And that in and of itself is going to unlock the doorway to deeper realms of grief that might be being carried in our bodies. So when loss happens, at any point from the conception to afterbirth period, it goes without saying that our societies don't have very many conscious spaces where these experiences that women are having can exist, let alone be honored and held and witnessed and supported through these experiences. When it comes to loss of a child, sometimes, or a baby, sometimes these experiences happened at stages of your life that you've quite literally forgotten. And so when I'm working with women, usually they're in their 30s and they are now conceiving, and they're now wanting to conceive, and there's blockages coming up, or there's something in them that is saying, there's just something still there that I need to clear before I conceive a baby. And so when we start working with her body, with her mind, with her emotions, with her psyche, what's often found is that there was loss earlier in her life, whether that be in her teens or her 20s. And if that energy of the grief and her experience at that time, and also the energy of the soul that came to her at that time, wasn't properly honored and acknowledged and released, which would have required that she be present with that deep experience of loss, that she be loved and witnessed and supported through that experience of loss, then that energy and that deeply stored grief is still living in her body, in her emotions, and her physiology has organized around all of that energy. And so what that could show up as is, the membranous folds inside the uterine lining just being really rough and edgy and really hard for an embryo to burrow in and take up residence inside of that space. And so she may conceive, and that fertilized egg may not be able to sustain life inside of her, and it may just get washed out with the next flow over and over. And this is really important because a lot of people, and myself included, live. I mean, grief is, I think, one of the things that makes us all connected and makes us all human. It's one of our most human experiences. And in a lot of ways, I would say grief is the highest expression of love. When it comes down to it and you go into that space and allow everything that's there to exist, what you'll come to is this pure state of just love. So if you're anything like me, and I experienced deep loss in utero, the loss of my twin, and this is something that I'm continuously working with, and I'll be working with until the end of this lifetime. It's part of who I am and what I carry and what I part of my journey of coming into wholeness. But if our mothers had also grief in their wombs, in their bodies, unresolved grief that they may or may not have been coherent or even conscious of, that could go back to their own in utero experiences or their early childhood experiences or their adult experiences, if that grief is unresolved, that it's not that we're getting rid of grief. Grief is part of our everyday human experience. It's coming and going all the time. It's about becoming aware of these things. If she's not coherent with that, and if that hasn't been cleared and released through being honored, revered, all those things, then that grief would have still been living inside her womb. And so when you are growing inside of her womb, inside of your mother's womb, you're being bathed in all of that. And it becomes very difficult when we enter form to differentiate between what's mine and what's mom's, because mother-baby is one energetic body. If mom's really coherent with her grief when it comes up during the pregnancy, she can let her unborn baby know, oh yeah, I'm feeling a deep sadness right now. I think that has to do with such and such experience. That doesn't have anything to do with you. You don't have to take that into your body. And the intelligence of natural law baby says, oh, okay, great. And biology organizes around these things. But and then the baby doesn't have to take it on. But 9 times out of 10, this isn't the case. Particularly in our generations, our mothers didn't know to do this or that they could do this, and we're coming out of hundreds of years of women not being supported and women still not being supported during these childbearing years. So there's so much here. I would like to give mention to the fact that we can clear a lot of this current lifetime trauma, grief, loss, and transgenerational trauma, grief, and loss, so that we are not passing this along to the future generations. And I say this over and over and over again. The beings that are coming to Earth right now are coming from other star planets, they're coming from other star nations, and they aren't connected to the same kind of ancestral thread and karmic healing and clearing thing that we are a part of. They're coming to teach, to lead, to innovate, to heal. And they're going to do that in all kinds of forms, in all kinds of ways. It's probably, the teachers of this age are not going to look like the teachers have in the past several hundred years. So this is all changing form, but regardless, They aren't coming to do the same thing that a lot of us are doing, which is this deep, old healing and transmutation, transfiguration. So the more that we can clear these things, the more we just don't assert them to taking care of that for us. Because, Dr. Akira Akegawa, he's a Japanese doctor who is a world-leading expert in prenatal memory. He's interviewed many, many, many children between the ages of 2 and 4 when their prenatal memories are still intact, and ask them, why did you come to Earth? And what most children say, and what the findings are in that were and continue to be, that babies are coming to make their mamas happy. They're coming to make their mothers happy. And they're coming to help people. There's so many incredible stories and accounts, and I totally recommend the work being done by Dr. Akira Akegawa in Japan and that whole team of prenatal memory. But the reason that I bring this up now is because when baby is growing inside the womb, that baby selflessly will do whatever it takes to ensure the mother's happiness. Because her happiness is their life source. Is their reassurance that they are going to be loved and they're going to be happy and they're going to be safe in this world, in their family, in their community. So, okay, coming back, when it comes to loss in relation to conceiving, let's say a woman is having a hard time conceiving, and we start working together, and we start going into her body, into her experiences, into her past experiences, to gather information about what's going on here now and how can we fuel the way forward. What needs to happen is there needs to be closure around these losses. There needs to be ceremony. That soul needs to be acknowledged. That grief needs to be honored. And there's a couple of things that happen here. One, we raise the consciousness of the whole thing, and we allow for any of these energies of shame, guilt, resent to be released. The vibrational frequency and the consciousness of everything rises, and I believe that this also allows for that soul that came to you that left for whatever reason to then also be on their way, and likely if it's been years that they're long on their way, but I think that it helps everyone. I think it helps the soul journey of everybody. When every single being who comes to Earth needs to feel a sense of purpose. And when we're doing end-of-life work, one of the most important things with death is helping these individuals and ourselves to reconnect with our purpose. What was my gift? What am I leaving behind? So, with honoring loss in the form of pregnancy loss and termination of pregnancy, any of these things, what needs to happen is we need to honor this soul and our own personal experience, and what this always delivers and enables that woman, that life bringer, to receive is the gift that soul brought in for her. It's the purpose for why that soul came. There's always a purpose. There's always a gift there. There's always a gift that usually is promoting a really big awakening or realization. Healing something that's absolutely necessary, and her soul is calling her to heal in this lifetime and not pass on. So when the soul gets to be honored, then healing can happen. As with birth trauma, the story that is told and what actually happened are usually never the same. So what I mean by that is what I mean by that is what we're being told, whether that's from a medical professional, whether that's from our peers, whether, however people uncomfortably show up to try to support us in these times, usually that isn't a reflection of what's actually happening. So when you get to tell your story and really honestly, wholeheartedly, authentically, transparently just give a voice to your experience, which you communicate not only to yourself but to the soul, when complete honesty and transparency and truthfulness is held, then we get to the essence, to the truth that is always love, to rise. And then closure can happen. And you want to know that your body changes, that your cells regenerate in these kinds of processes. This is quantum healing. I don't call it that usually, but it's a word that people sort of are familiar with, and so this is one of the reasons why I also use the term sacred reproductive technology, because we have sacred technologies. They're built into us. They're not outside of us. They're practices, they're inner knowings, they're rituals, these are ancient parts of us and ways of being in the world, and ways of handling birth, life, death, and all of these things that actually, when we start talking about them, it's like, oh yeah, totally, that totally makes sense. Of course I need to honor all of this, and I deserve to be honored, and the soul that came to me deserves to also be honored. So I think I'm going to leave it here for now. This is a really big topic, and I'm really getting new to speaking to a screen, and it's very different than speaking to humans. So I understand that it can be a little bit here and there and everywhere, but leave comments. What does this open in you? What does it vibrate in you? And do you have experiences that relate to what it is that I'm talking about? Is this totally new for you? Just drop some comments, and that helps me to know where to go next with these videos. So thank you very much, and blessings to all the souls that are coming in. Wow, they are teaching us so much. They are guiding the way and teaching us a new way. It's old, it's ancient, it's original, and it's also a new way to be in the world. Thank you.